what we have seen transpire in manufacturing, and one thing that you don't know about the facts is that the United States produces and manufactures far more than it did in 1960 and 1950s in the supposed golden age of manufacturing. And if the reality were as people suspected, I mean, we wouldn't be surrounded by as much stuff in the United States as we actually are, and have so much fucking property to sift through, that you've got a problem with hoarding at this point and people needing to get rid of stuff. Anyways, the the simple truth and reality of what happened with manufacturing jobs is that China gets too much of the blame ultimately for what transpired in manufacturing. Now, I'm not saying that it would be ludicrous ultimately to argue that the rise of Chinese manufacturing has had no impact whatsoever on the United States and its manufacturing sector and the share of jobs in the economy. I mean, especially with a government that's subsidizing the hell out of domestic production in China in order to to replace much of the U.S. workforce. I mean, Detroit really fucking hates BYD because they've driven the price of cars way the fuck down. U.S. auto industry is doing everything it fucking can to fight BYD off and prevent it from coming here. Fuck them for that. I mean, I would love to drive one of those because they're cheap. They're getting really cost effective and everything at doing it. But what has happened to manufacturing work in the United States is that the share of jobs as a proportion of the U.S. workforce has completely collapsed. And as Cumey argued, it's like what happened in farming, and that there it used to be about half the workforce had to work in farming, and now it's like what 2% of the actual jobs and work that's available internet, across the nation, and that people are doing. So what and yet we still produce just as much stuff, if not more. In fact, more than we did back then. And what's happened is that humans have designed mechanical and electrical muscles. Basically, they've replaced physical labor with a machine doing the work for them to a considerable extent. And Mike, who used to work in manufacturing and everything and have a job on the factory floor, didn't, for the most part, didn't lose his job to some guy in Mexico, or more accurately and broadly, China is blamed, and so to a limited extent also India, and everything for what's transpired. But the truth the truth is that the United States never stopped producing stuff domestically. I mean, this supposed decline that was caused by the rise of China, um, to put it mildly, this is not an accurate reflection of what actually happened, and unfortunately, it's politically popular. To just simplify everything. One of the things that really drives me crazy about politics is that like the average voter wants this. What they want to vote for is somebody that proposes simple solutions to very complex problems, and sometimes problems are way too complex to be solved with a simple solution. Sometimes the problem that we face is going to need as far as a solution, the solution is going to have to be just as complex as the problem, and everything. And the voters won't understand that it's not simple enough for them. You have to keep it simple for all these people to understand it, and that's just not the reality. Some of the problems the United States are faced with are just way too complicated to be solved by a simple, solution to all these problems. But that's not politically popular. That's people want it fucking simple. And you know, uh, anyways, to get to the really the meat of what I was going to say in all this is that looking at reports, it's about 9 out of every 10 jobs that were lost, were lost to machines and everything. Like 1 out of 10 of these workers was replaced by the Chinese. So it's had an impact for sure, but its impact has been vastly overstated for political purposes. Because the truth
the truth doesn't win elections. Like